Gentlemen, it's being reported that Mallorca is nearing a loan move of Canadian international Cyle Larin to Valencia, worth €1 million plus additional fees based on performance. Cyle Larin, of course, one of many Canadian players we've been keeping an eye on. Where are they going to land? Where are they going to get playing time heading into the 2026 World Cup? Do you like this news for Larin, Jordan?
I love it. I love it. It kind of reminds me of the 23 loan deal with Valladolid where he could just go to a team. Obviously, they still got relegated, but it was a successful time for Larin in terms of getting minutes and being a productive force for the club. I think that could be the same for the mid-table Valencia team last year. They finished 12th. They're short on goals. They need a goal scorer. And Cyle Larin needs to be in a place where he plays regularly. He's a consistent figure within the squad. I think going into a World Cup year, nothing in football is certain, but you just want to put him in a situation where he's playing all the time and can get back to the form that I think people that know him knows he can be at. I think he knows he could be at as well. So it's one of those things. It's always a gamble, but I feel like it could be a perfect marriage. It could be a situation that could benefit both club and player. So I do like the move. It's just whether they can fit it in with the dinero, with the almighty dollar, because I feel like with his deal, the $1 million for the loan plus the wages as well, maybe Valencia can get 2 players for that, or a player and a half, you could say. But if it is Cyle Larin that they're betting on, I do like it. I like that move for him.
Well, he stays in La Liga, another very good league. Playing at a good level. Carlos Corberán, when he came over, like Valencia were terrible out of the gate at the beginning of last season, but he really turned things around and they became a very competitive side down the stretch. So I think there's some substance to what they're trying to do there. I'm a little bit surprised. Maybe it's a timing thing. That a player of his age just isn't sorting out like his long to medium term future. Like a loan move seems something temporary, but maybe ahead of the World Cup, that puts him in the best spot to kind of show what he can do over the course of the next 10 months. Then beyond the World Cup, potentially even raise his stock and maybe raise his profile more for where he might go next. So yeah, we'll see. The reports have been loose. From what I've read, there's nothing absolutely concrete, but if this is the possible solution, it wouldn't be one that I would think would be negative. Like Jordan, I kind of think this would be a pretty positive move for the player.
And a lot of eyes are going to be on him, of course, just when it comes to the national team and everything is pushing towards 2026 World Cup, gentlemen. We know all this. And Cyle Larin is somebody, especially during that run to Qatar 2022, at one point was the leading scorer for the national men's team. Jonathan David has since surpassed him, but he does have 30 goals for country. But it's been a while since he last scored for Canada. You got to go back to 2024, October 15th, and it was a friendly against Panama. And the fans are starting to voice their opinion a little bit, especially since new blood has come into the squad. And you almost wonder, has he fallen down on the depth chart in Jesse Marsch's eyes? Or is he still a starting attacker for the national team? How do you feel about that, Jordan?
He's definitely fallen down. I think that's one of those things where people look at the new players and all the exciting players that could potentially take that spot. But if you ask me personally, and this is not biased, this is just me looking at this team objectively, I still put Cyle Larin up there. Obviously, this is a huge year, and a lot can happen with who's healthy and who's scoring a lot of goals and who Jesse Marsch trusts. That's a huge factor going into this tournament. But I just think Cyle Larin still has a lot to offer. There's no other player. Jay David has over 30 for the national team, but so does Cyle Larin, and that speaks for me as well. I also think he's clever. You think at the beginning stage when you saw Jesse Marsch play, when he played Netherlands and France and Argentina, I loved his role. He just didn't put the ball in the back of the net. And everyone's going to say, well, that's the job of a striker. But if you're doing all the other 90% for me, I think that is something where you maybe gamble on him. I see the prospect of younger players stepping up, but as my grandma and my mother would say, like, new broom sweeps clean, but the old broom knows the corners. Take that one.
Oh, excuse you. I like that saying.
Wow. I've never heard that one.
Jamaicans, they have the saying for everything. But that's how I feel about Cyle Larin. I think once he hit plus 30, everyone's like, oh, let's get a new broom in. But the old broom knows the corners.
All right, I wouldn't even.
No, I don't think he's an old broom. I just think he's well used. You know what I mean? And I still think there's a lot of use to get out of that sweeping device. Look, there's a couple things that are working against Cyle Larin. He's now 30. that's something that kind of dictates what he's able to do on the field, just in terms of his overall mobility, his pressing, the legs that he may or may not have at this point. Father Time wins every time. And then alongside, when Jesse Marsch came in to take over the reins of this program, we kind of were asked, like, which player might not fit that style of play necessarily. And I think that Cyle Larin was the player that most people pointed to. Again, from a stylistic perspective, I think that he can be a little bit more of a technical player, just not a player that's just going to run and sprint and press and go about his business that way. And I think the fit has been a little bit awkward. But still, at this point, like, who partners best with Jonathan David in attack? And those two players can still link up better than the rest at this point. Look, I really do think that this is an open race, that Larin, Oluwaseyi, Promise David, and Jebison all have a fair shot, and potentially others can work themselves into the mix. Bear, Russell Rowe, Charles Andreas Brim, like, other players could step up based upon the context over the course of the next year. So look, it's Jonathan David and blank. And right now, like Jordan said, the case can be made, despite the public wanting and loving new players coming into the team, it needs to be repeatable. Jebison has a big year on loan at Preston. How's he going to perform? I think talent-wise, he may be trump the rest. Promise David, can he capitalize on the season that he had last year, which put him on the grid, like put him on the map? But now he needs to go do it, and not only just in the Belgian league, in the Champions League as well, a step up in competition. He needs to prove that he can be a fit. Oluwaseyi, the list goes on and on of players that have something to prove. So let's call this an open race right now. Larin may be edging it in terms of the lead in our eyes. I don't think in Jesse Marsch's eyes, but I think a lot will play over the next 10 months. And I will say this, Valencia played much more progressive football than Mallorca, where they are such a defensive team, really, really boring at times and stale. So it kind of didn't suit Cyle Larin's strengths either. So perhaps a move like this can rejuvenate him and put him in a better context.
Mallorca always felt like a misfit, and Valencia could be that perfect marriage that we already alluded to, where he's playing that football that actually allows him to be an opportunist, to get that service, to be a figure in the box, that hold-up play. Wheels, I don't know how you feel, but you kind of already touched on Oluwaseyi. It kind of felt like Gold Cup, that was Jesse Marsch's go-to guy, and that was his number 9 that he felt like he would use. But I just feel like when you have a World Cup game, when you have everything on the line and you want to start well, it's nice that Canada has options. But I'm still thinking Larin's going to be the guy. I still think he's going to be the big dog leading the Lions.
We'll see. Again, like, it seems like Marsch wants very fast, very quick, someone that can get about the park. Yeah, like, I hate to simplify it to that degree, and that right now is not Cyle Larin. So perhaps the player has something more to do. It's indisputable he is playing at a higher level than any of the competition for that position. And on that basis, and the fact that he does have a track record, not only succeeding with David, but Canada as well, I think that he should be given the benefit of the doubt until someone else comes up and takes that position away. And, there's been glimpses, there's been good games by any one of those number of players, but no one that's been consistently as strong over the years as Larin. So we'll see. I mean, a big 10 months for all of these candidates, vying for essentially one starting spot.
Listen, just in a few months, we're also going to have some big friendlies for the men in September and in October. And I think we'll see a lot of what Jesse Marsch is thinking based on who he starts, but also who he's giving playing time to and the chemistry. So those are going to be some huge friendlies, and probably, maybe, hopefully then we'll get our answers on where he sees Cyle Larin.